Today, our guest is Priority Payment Systems Local. And the topic, like you see on the screen, is how to simplify paying vendors and saving big on processing. To kick things off now, let's bring on Chuck Pappas, VP of Operations at StrategicSource. And Chuck, take it away.
Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for registering for our profit improvement webinar. We're glad you're joining us today. This afternoon, we are pleased to present Josh Amato, and he is the Vice President, Strategic Development and Finance at Priority Payment Systems Local. Today, he's going to provide some expert advice on how to simplify paying vendors and saving big on processing. We'll bring Josh on in just a minute here. We have a slide up right now, so if you're interested in getting this slide, just scan this QR code, and we'll make sure that we get a copy of this off to you right away. After you review it again, I'm sure that Josh and his staff will be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have, so feel free to contact them. You know, we started this webinar series about 3 years ago. In the course of all these webinars, we have presented a ton of different categories, from audit recovery, saving on your shipping, market analysis of your buyers, dealer DMS systems, aircraft financing, and revenue producing opportunities, all designed to help you improve the profit of your dealership. So if you're new to the series, keep your eye out for these. That we have them coming up about every other week, but you can sign up for them and we put them on our website so you can see what's coming up in advance. With that, I'll turn it over to Josh. Josh, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you all for joining with us today. I know it's a very busy time of the month for you with month-end close and whatnot. But as Chuck mentioned, my name is Josh Amato. I am the Vice President of Strategic Development and Finance here at Priority Payments Local. And thank you again for joining our webinar. So before we jump into things, just kind of getting an understanding of our audience today. So we have our first poll. David, if you're able to pull that up. We have a lot in store today. As Chuck mentioned, we are Priority Payments Local, and we want to dive into overall understanding of who we are at PPL, financial impact that we have been creating for automotive dealerships, operational impact that we've been creating for the automotive dealerships as well. We want to touch on the cost savings. We have a program here at Priority Payments Local called Net Zero Processing, which is really revolutionizing the way that automotive merchants are saving money on their overall credit card processing fees. We also want to dive into our proprietary CDK integration. It's called AutoLink, and then ultimately discuss our operation as a whole. We currently service over 1,000 automotive dealerships across the country and climbing. Every single week we have technicians that are flying to all different states. In fact, we have 2 that are in Florida this week. Another 2 are headed out to Colorado the week after. And then following that, they'll be in Wisconsin as well as Illinois. So every single week, we're onboarding more and more merchants on our program, for many different reasons. So just a little bit about us at Priority Payments Local. We launched a little over 10 years ago, and at our core, we are a payment processor. Our mission from the very beginning was how can we streamline the ways that merchants are accepting payments, and how can we save merchants money? Right, those have been our 2 goals over 10 years ago, and every single day that all of us come into work, it's still our goal. When we first started out, we had a vertical primarily in the retail, hospitality, restaurant, but over the course of the many years, we have evolved, and really, I'd say over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, have transitioned to an automotive payment processor. We have put a lot of time, money, and resources into our automotive division, from a support level, from an operational level, and from a strategy level as well. We definitely noticed that there was a need in the automotive space on how merchants could, save money on their bottom line, but also streamline the ways that they were accepting payments. So again, at our core, we are a payment processor. And our goal, again, is to reduce the high cost and inefficiencies that we noticed in the automotive space to help merchants, save money. So before we dive into the AutoLink portion, David, if you are able to pull up the second poll that we have, just kind of want to get an understanding of the dealer management software that some of you guys are using today. I think we're good there. So I see some of you have answered others. Some are using Tekion, very familiar with Tekion. We got one using CDK Global, which is fantastic. But appreciate the responses here. Again, I want to talk about our two proprietary programs, our AutoLink integration, as well as our Net Zero processing program. I will say AutoLink is an application that we built on the Fortellis marketplace, which is a bridge between our payment gateway and CDK. So this is a 360 direct integration into CDK that fully integrates into the DMS and allows you to enjoy the benefits of surcharging and dual pricing. Net Zero processing is exactly that. That's what we call our surcharge and dual pricing program. There's slight differences between the two. However, there is tremendous upside on both of them. Our market research of the 1,000 plus dealerships that we currently service, Net Zero is saving groups on average about 82% of their overall processing fees, or about $87,000 annually per rooftop on an annual basis. We also have banking as a service, two value adds of working with Priority Payments Local. As I said, we are at our core a payment processor. However, we do have, banking platforms as well. Two of those being Passport, which offers cash flow management, banking, treasury services, and reconciliation, as well as Plastic, which is basically converting credit limits from a business card to an ACH payment to a supplier. Again, these are two value adds. We don't have the information in this presentation. However, if you do want additional information on this, I'd be more than happy to provide that for you. Again, we want to focus here primarily on our CDK integration via AutoLink, as well as our Net Zero program. So this is our third and final poll. Again, we call our program Net Zero, which harbors surcharging. So just kind of want to get an understanding for those that are in attendance of if you're familiar with surcharging, if you're currently doing it, if you've never heard of it, so on and so forth. So yeah, I see that there are some that are doing it, many that have heard of it, but aren't doing it, and a few that are unfamiliar with it. So we'll definitely, touch on all of those. All right, so I'll start off with AutoLink. AutoLink, as I mentioned, is our CDK integrated application that is streamlining and bridging the way that merchants are accepting payments. AutoLink is fully compatible with CDK and our payment gateway, IPOS. I will say that the IPOS gateway does also run side by side with all of the DMSs that we listed earlier, Tekion, Reynolds, DealerTrack. Every DMS that is in existence, IPOS does run side by side with. However, the AutoLink tool is specifically for CDK clients. And the reason that we started with CDK was just due to customer demand. When we first launched CDK in 2023, we had many of our automotive merchants that were using CDK. We know that CDK is one of the leading providers in the automotive space when it comes to dealer management softwares. So our integration, that's where we wanted to start our integration. However, we have been exploring other DMS integrations over the course of the last several months. And very similar to what inspired this integration, we would want to do the same for anyone who has another DMS that they're using. Again, it was customer driven. So we've received requests from other customers that are using other DMSs to explore integration. But again, the more and more that we have those responses, the more we can explore those integrations further. But again, essentially what AutoLink is it's an application that bridges together CDK and IPOS and uses technology to automatically fetch the penny perfect dollar amount from CDK to the payment gateway. So on the payment gateway, there's 4 ways of accepting payments, right? We have a standalone terminal environment. We have a pay now feature through the gateway. We have a point of sale feature. as well as payment links. Essentially, the route of running the transaction in each of those environments is very similar. I'll start with the terminal environment. It's one of the most common ways of accepting payments in the automotive space. So when a customer is faced at the terminal, using AutoLink technology, the cashier would enter the invoice number from CDK, which will then grab, again, that penny perfect dollar amount from CDK and bring it to the device. These devices can be equipped to run net zero processing and either apply the surcharge or not. And then it creates what's called a promise ID that then is initiated back into CDK to recognize that that payment has been made and accepted. There's still the need for manually closing out the RO. However, the technology there is that rather than having to back and forth grab those dollar amounts, the AutoLink technology is automatically grabbing that payment amount. One of the key features of, I will say it's of IPOS, but as well as AutoLink, one of the things that we noticed in this space was how, certain risk-related transactions were being accepted. Over the course of the last several months and onboarding 1,000+ dealerships across the country, we have noticed that there has been an uptick in the number of fraudulent transactions that were being accepted through certain gateways. So the AutoLink integration as well as the IPOS gateway are fully built with AVS and reCAPTCHA, which is Google's version of two-step authentication of making sure that the transactions are secure. But the big piece there is AVS. When running a payment, especially in a virtual scenario, whether it's a payment link or, keying it in through the gateway, there is fraud that exists, when accepting payments. So having the ability to run AVS, which is an address verification, secures the transaction just at an extra level, which mitigates and reduces the number of chargebacks that we're seeing our clients get. I do want to spend a majority of time just going over our net zero processing program. At the beginning of our presentation, we talked about, money saving tactics, right? Over 8 or 9 years ago, we launched net zero processing, again, in every vertical that we work with. I'm sure as consumers, we're all familiar with surcharging and convenience fees, and we've been paying them, again, as consumers for decades. Every time that I fill up my tank of gas, I am subjected to, a dual pricing of a sort. The two prices that are presented to me as a client, based on how I elect to make my payment, ultimately, believe it or not, eliminates that gas station's cost of accepting that fee. So that's called a dual pricing scenario. Surcharge is slightly different. However, both of them we have seen run successfully in the dealership environment. I know many of you mentioned that you have heard of surcharging, and I'm sure you're seeing it everywhere. Because again, of the 1,000+ dealerships that we currently service, about 92% of them are on a net zero surcharging or dual pricing scenario. If we were to backtrack, I'd say 8 or 9 years ago when net zero was first starting to get adopted, I don't want to use the word rare, but it was infrequent that a merchant was ever really calling us and requesting this program. Most dealerships that we speak to, even today, are operating in a traditional environment where they're still shouldering the cost of accepting payments. However, more and more, and as I mentioned, every single week, we're having dealerships call us and request for surcharging quotes or dual pricing quotes because they are seeing it, whether their competitors are doing it or as consumers. As I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, net zero in the automotive space has been tremendous due to the massive amount of savings that come along with it. Per our research on the 1,000+ rooftops that we have operating on net zero is saving them about 82% of their overall processing fees, which translates to just over $87,000 on an annual basis. Now, obviously, this is dependent on the size of the dealership, but again, this as an average is all breaking out to be about $87,000 per rooftop on an annual basis. One of the big things with net zero, I'll say, is how this is implemented on a compliance level and a strategic level. First and foremost, compliances. There are two sets of compliances that we follow here at Priority Payments. It's a state compliance as well as a card brand compliance. So Visa and MasterCard have their own sets of compliances when running this program, and I'll share a little story. Last year, a little over a year ago actually, on April 12th, I'll remember that date, is Visa pushed an update, right? They basically said that going forward, all merchants who are operating in a surcharging environment can no longer charge any amount over 3%. Prior to April 12th of 2023, there was a 4% cap on the amount that could be charged to a client. But after April 12th, Visa gave all merchants about a month to make that adjustment. We received this information actually in March of 2023. And prior to that release date, we had all of our merchants up and running in a compliant manner. So one of the added benefits of working with a processor like Priority Payments Local is that we stay on top of all of these changes. We make sure that, that we're not putting you at risk of accepting transactions in a non-compliant manner, and that you could be subject to penalty or fines, or even worse, the ability to not accept cards. That's, I think, at our core, what we hold very important to us is that making sure that our clients are always operating in compliance. So that's important on a Visa and MasterCard level, and as well as a state level, right? So each state has more or less they're kind of all in line with one another and what they allow and don't allow. However, there are a few states that don't allow it. I'm not sure if anyone in our audience today is from Massachusetts or Connecticut, but unfortunately those two states do not allow for a surcharging program. Also, for example, Colorado, we stay on top of the compliance legislative, and our Colorado merchants, their cap is 2%, right? So although Visa made that ruling on April 12th that the max amount that could be charged was 3%, we also have to adhere to state compliances such as Colorado, where they're only allowing a 2% fee to be applied. So again, I will say that that's one of the most important aspects of running this program, is doing so and making sure that you're sheltered and running this in a compliant manner. There's a lot of competitors and processors out there that do what we do, but not to the level in which we do it. Right, you'll see on the screen in here that we have 1,000+ rooftops that have eliminated their fees with us. And there's a reason that more and more are choosing us. I always like to say that there's strength in experience, and we have years of experience implementing this program. I do see that there was a question that came through the chat. So before I go forward, I do want to, jump on that. Here's one. It says, who handles the legality of surcharging rules for dual pricing and surcharging? That would be us. As I mentioned, we stay on top of that so you don't have to, right? We get this information weeks, even months sometimes before it's posted. And if for whatever reason we need to, make an adjustment with your system, we absolutely do so. Sporadically, we even have to push software updates to make sure that the systems that you're operating on are up to date with the up-to-date compliances. I see another question here. This is pertaining to the AutoLink, right? So if they said, what if I don't use CDK Global as my dealer management software? And as I mentioned prior, that is totally okay. The AutoLink integration, I will say, is really about the last 5% of our offering when it comes to implementing our technology. It does bridge everything together in that integration. However, we service hundreds of rooftops that are using dealers management softwares like Reynolds and Techion that have actually forewent integration to use our system. right? And the feedback that we have gotten is that the savings that are being realized in a net zero environment far outweigh the additional operational component of running side by side the two systems. So that's a really great question. Because again, we actually recently boarded an 8-location group in the state of Florida that had Reynolds and Reynolds with a direct rate pay integration. They elected to forego that integration to use our services and have not looked back. In fact, they actually are a kind of a testimonial for us now at this point. So for all future clients that we have boarded using Reynolds and rate pay, this one merchant has been kind enough to speak to the success of running this program in a side-by-side environment, and of course the savings that go along with it. And then the last question I see here is, do you have plans of implementing other DMSs? And we do, but that's all customer driven. So if we have a large book of customers that are looking for us to integrate into certain DMSs, it's always something that's on the forefront of our mind, because we obviously want that last 5%, that last piece to be, for everybody. We want that integration for all. But for the time being, our integration is strictly with CDK. I see a couple of other questions have come through. This question asks for our onboarding process. What does that look like? So our onboarding process, it's a very simple application process and then a white glove implementation, right? So we really pride ourselves on our service here at Priority Payments Local. As I mentioned earlier, we have put a lot of time, money, and resources into our automotive division. And from an onboarding standpoint, we have a team of technicians that flies, like I mentioned, all throughout the country to come and spend as many days necessary with your staff, training them on the new system, and sitting with them, helping them reconcile, physically plugging in new devices, and making sure that before they leave the dealership, that your group, your controllers, your GMs, accountants, whomever it is within the organization is 100% comfortable with the updated new system. And, we don't just stop there. I always say we're not the type of processor that's just going to, implement and say good luck. Again, in addition to that white glove on-site installation, we also have an automotive support team dedicated specifically to automotive. So whether it's chargebacks, risk, settlements, IT, really anything that you can think of, we have a team member that has dealt with that concern before from a dealership and has years of experience working with automotive merchants like yourself. Right. So in terms of the assessment offer, as a preferred processor for StrategicSource and as a member of StrategicSource, that you're getting the best rates. So whether it is a traditional processing environment or a net zero processing environment, that this savings and the rate that we would provide for the dealership are the lowest in the business. In a net zero environment, as I mentioned prior, whether it's surcharge or dual pricing, it does make a slight difference, really how debit cards are assessed. But we have worked with a few StrategicSource clients already, and those merchants have elected to implement a surcharging program. That program has eliminated their credit card fees. So anytime a customer is electing to pay via credit with this offering, their credit card fees are eliminated. When there is a payment elected to pay by debit, it comes at a 1% cost to the business. So in essence, in a net zero surcharging environment, the rooftop's liability is 0 on credit and 1% on debit. And then in a traditional environment, still subject to all of the interchange dues and assessments, no processor has the ability to remove those in a traditional environment. However, I will say, as part of AutoLink as well as IPOS, we do run in a level 2, level 3 space. which means that when a transaction can qualify for level 2 or 3 pricing and get those interchange downgrades, they will. The gateways are pre-built for that. So in terms of traditional, the interchange costs will be as low as they can be, and the plus factor as well is essentially passed through to keep costs at a low for all StrategicSource clients. All right, so again, the benefits of working with a company like Priority Payments Local is the ability to drastically reduce and even eliminate credit card processing fees. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll reiterate, the average rooftop is saving about $87,000 annually running this program. In addition to savings, operational components are huge. We have AutoLink, which is our direct integration into CDK, as well as IPOS payment gateway, which can run side by side with just about every DMS. Both are level 2, level 3 PCI compliant, and both lead to faster transactions and fewer errors. Our client support team, as I mentioned, we have a team dedicated specifically to automotive merchants. And any questions that you have as part of our onboarding process, we would equip you with a contact sheet. So anytime you have a customer, anytime a new rooftop boards with us, you'll be given a sheet with everyone within our organization's first name, last name, email address, and phone number. So any questions that you have that may come up, we're always on hand ready to answer and assist you those as fast as we can and as effective as we can. And of course, everything going forward, right? We're an ever-growing, ever-evolving company. Like I mentioned, just over the course of the last year, we launched that CDK integration, and we have big plans of continuing to launch more and more enhancements as they're needed and as we see fit. And then just, it's always great. We like to throw these in here. Every time we're doing a presentation, we always offer the opportunity to speak with a satisfied client, right? We can, sing our praises all day long, but kind of hearing it from a client who has been working with us, we have found has been very effective. And this is 2 instances of multi-location groups in our New Jersey area that have launched net zero processing and have really been, appreciating the benefits. So, part of our process, part of our proposal, anytime if there's ever a need to speak with another processor in your area, or sorry, another auto group in your area, we'll always look to line that up, put you in contact with another controller, CFO, support member, whatever it might be, and just give you the opportunity to speak to someone who is living the experience of working with Priority Payments. Right now, ultimately, from here, we would love the opportunity to present to you on more a one-on-one level. So we have a team of analysts that would gladly put together a proposal for you to outline the savings on one of our many programs, whether that is surcharging environment or traditional or dual pricing. Really any of the 3 programs, our analysts can put together an analysis to show you at your rooftops what you could save on a month-to-month and projected annual level. And in addition to that, we like to also set aside time to demonstrate the gateway tailored to your business. As I mentioned before, AutoLink is our CDK integration. So if you are a CDK client, we would love to demo AutoLink for you. However, if you are a Techion client or a Reynolds and Reynolds client, we also have the ability to demonstrate IPOS to kind of show you what that would look like in a side-by-side environment. So those one-on-one demos are proven to be very effective because they can, kind of give you the opportunity to see what that looks like for your specific rooftop on a financial and operational level. So again, there's our contact information. We can always be reached at autolink@pplocal.io or our office line, which would route to myself or anyone within our team. So if there's ever a need for questions or a desire to set up a secondary demo, we're happy to do so. But at this time, I do want to break and give everyone the opportunity on the call to, ask any questions that they might have.
Everyone, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can type a question, and that'll go straight into Josh. Here's one that came in. What is your onboarding process like, and how long does it take to set up and install a new account?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, our onboarding process, we start with our white glove implementation. So prior to us being on site, we would do an equipment audit with whether it's an IT team or a general manager. We would determine how many devices are needed. And once we have that number, our team will encrypt and build those devices in our HQ office, and then we'll schedule a time to either come on site or deliver the devices to perform a remote installation. I will say, just this past week, we received an application on Tuesday, and we have a merchant in California going live this Friday. So our turnaround there from application to audit to delivered devices for remote installation was only a few days. If there is a need for us being on site, I would generally say we're able to always accommodate that, as fast as the dealership really needs. We would always have to go through our scheduling team, but if we have an opening, like we've done these successfully in 7 days, 8 days time frame. But yeah, we have a pretty quick turnaround.
All right, here is another. When will we realize the benefits of Net Zero and AutoLink?
That's instantaneous, right? So from the very first transaction that you accept in Net Zero processing, you will realize the impact of the bottom line savings, right? So from the first transaction you accept, you start to realize those savings. In terms of AutoLink, same thing. That first transaction when you're grabbing that penny perfect dollar amount and creating that promise ID that then speaks back to CDK, that reconciliation process happens within seconds, and that's realized immediately as well.
We'll bring Chuck on in just a moment, but I'm not sure, Josh, whether you had covered this one here earlier, but I'll put it out there again here. How has the customer response been to surcharging?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, I've probably done thousands of demonstrations and proposals and presentations for rooftops across the country. And I can say that is the number one question that comes up on every single one of our presentations. How are my customers going to respond? What is my CSI going to look like? And, I always say that I always share this tidbit. Right. I mentioned prior that we have over 1,000 plus rooftops that are currently using our services, 92% which are on Net Zero. Of those 92%, many of which who have enrolled, 5+ years ago, not a single one has come off the program. Right. And prior to them enrolling in the program, they all had the same questions. How are my customers going to respond? Now, 5 years later, 6 years later, of still continuing to run the program, I think that speaks volumes to the success that merchants have had when implementing a surcharge.
Well, we all have bills to pay, lots of bills to pay. I would encourage you to reach out to Josh and his team, and I think that they'll be able to help you, especially with all of these extra payments and that you're making and all these charges that you get. They're bound to help you be able to save that money. When you look at $87,000 per rooftop per year that is savings for a big dealership, that's pretty impressive, even if you get a portion of that back for each one of your dealerships. So I think it'd be worth a call. We'll have this webinar up in about a day or two on our website, but if you scan this QR code, give us your information. We'll make sure that you get that copy of that webinar just as soon as we can. Thanks again, Josh. Nice job. But this webinar is a great segue into how much money are you leaving on the table. You're thinking about how you're paying all of these bills that come in there because you're dealing with an incredible amount of different types of places that you have to spend your money with different suppliers. most dealerships are spending, they're overspending by 25% each month. That's a lot of money, that 25%. Some of the dealer facts that you should know of that all those bills that you're paying, those category options, there are over 150 of those. Typically, most companies will spend about 100 of them, but the spend as a percentage of sales, like 5%, at $100 million dealership, that's $5 million in spend. And StrategicSource can save you 25% of that money. That's about $1.5 million, well, $1,250,000 that they can save you that goes right to your bottom line of money that you're spending. One of the reasons that this happens is decentralized purchasing. 95% of the dealerships don't have centralized centralized purchasing. I'm sorry. The locations can pretty much spend whatever they want, and they can buy from whoever they want. So I would just say that it's something worth. StrategicSource can be your purchasing partner and can help coordinate all of that stuff. Business plans, part of the business problem that we have is that there's too broad a scope of expense categories. There's way too many of them. And typically there's not a plan to attack all of those. We know that dealerships are short-staffed. So StrategicSource has a lot of experience in cost reduction analytics. Last year our sourcing division did over 2,300 sourcing projects, and they could analyze all those expenses, and they did that for all of our dealerships that are our customers, and they saved them a ton of money. Dealers are typically overpaying 25% on the average. There's too broad a category, and these are the things that you're dealing with. There's too many broad categories. There are too many suppliers to manage, too many supplier invoices, all of which you're paying, and too few discounts or rebates that you find that you can have the opportunity to take. So the challenges become, how do you simplify that? This is an incredible slide right here. If you look at the top and see the annual sales revenues of different types, different size dealerships from 25 million to 300 million, and what that average annual supply service spend is of that percentage, just take a look at that bottom line, minimum monthly savings. That's a minimum monthly savings that goes right to your bottom line. And that's all your money. So just remember that all these cost savings drop to your bottom line. So you have an immediate impact on your profitability. Expense category scope, we're just touching on this one. There are 72 general expense categories. If you're a dealership, a church, a manufacturing company, a service provider, you'll probably use the majority of these categories to buy from. If you own your facility or you're leasing, you're going to probably pick up these other 15 facility categories that you'll probably be spending money in. And if you're an auto dealer, you're probably looking at another 56 expense categories. So you can see that the scope of work on this is pretty big, 130 to 150 categories. This can be pretty overwhelming. But StrategicSource has some solutions for you to be able to fix this. Our spend analysis program, I guess I missed one. Sorry, our profit improvement program, they manage high expenses because we know you have little time and there's poor profitability in that. But we do a financial analysis of what you have. We do spend category planning to find out how we can save you the most. Then our sourcing department goes through those expense categories and creates recommendations for you. We implement those categories for you. We review them, and then our audit department audits that supplier to make sure they're in compliance with saving you the money that they said that they would. Our strategic spend analysis, this is another tool we have. A little more strategic. It's got a broad look at your expenses. We analyze them, we put them in the correct category buckets, and we build a plan for you to execute. This gives you an organized, prioritized plan, a good staff planning tool, all with the idea that we give you a direct savings and put it right to your bottom line. Contract tracker. Most dealers have a number of contracts. Some dealers have in excess of 100 different contracts, and keeping current and managing all the terms of those contracts can be quite a daunting task. The nice thing about this is it gives you contract visibility. It gives you advanced alerts on any type of expiration date that we can program in there. And from a risk mitigation standpoint, it gives you some time to think about what terms you may want to change on that contract. Our spend management suite solves a lot of problems. The problems that we solve are poor staff training, no contract management, high prices, weak profits. You know, we look at all these things that we offer here, from Contract Tracker that we just talked about, Expense Edge that we'll talk about in just a minute, but our spend management coaching and learning is an incredible program that we have, because we can actually train your team to do what we do. Expense Edge, this is one of the newer products that we're launching here, and this was created from our database of thousands of price comps. This is kind of similar to Home Depot. We provide the tools and solutions for you, but we give you the data points that you can help, that you'll use so that you can make the decisions that you need to make, keep your costs down. Our spend management learning, simply put, we can teach your team to do what our team does. We've trained many folks, and we do many webinars in Purchasing 101, 102, 103, and we can help develop the skill sets of your staff as well. Now, again, copies of this webinar presentation are on here, and we hope that this has been helpful for you. So scan this and we'll make sure that we get the information. Thanks again, Josh from Priority Payments Systems Local, for your presentation. As a note, I just want to say that all the suppliers that StrategicSource uses, we do not take any compensation from, not in any manner, shape, or form. We know what their work is, we know how competitive they are, and how reliable they are. So we encourage you to take a deeper look at our supplier offerings. Thanks again for attending today. David?
Yeah, before I take a portion just for the close, Josh, did you have any final comments as we have had you as our guest?
Yeah, just want to thank everyone again for joining. I had appreciated the opportunity to present to you guys briefly what AutoLink and NetZero can do. But as Chuck just mentioned, we'd love the opportunity to take a deeper dive into what we can do for your specific dealership. I know the overviews of the programs are fantastic, but really, we can excel in a one-on-one demonstration where we'll be able to determine your financial impact that NetZero can create for you, as well as the operational impact that AutoLink or IPOS can create as well. So if you are interested in that, I know in the webinar we included our email address of AutoLink at pplocal.io. If you wanted to just shoot us a quick email, just with your name, the name of your dealership, and, just short, I'm interested, we'd be happy to schedule a one-on-one demo with you to dive into your specific dealership.
All right. Thank you, Josh. And everyone, you spent 50 minutes with us approximately. Let's launch the post-session survey. There's 2 questions, short and sweet. All right, everyone. We appreciate everyone's time today, and we look forward to you joining us on future profit improvement webinar series events with StrategicSource. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of the week.